What up, nerd? Seth here to help you level up your fandom. Today, we're going to learn how to do some reverse wood staining. Okay, so first things first, I need some wood to test out this staining methodology here. So what I'm going to do is cut out the circle to these cornhole boards first and use that piece to test my staining on, because it's the exact same wood that I'm going to be finally staining on. So to do that, I need to measure in half the width of this board and then measure down 9 inches, and that will be the center of my circle. I'm going to make a 6-inch diameter hole, so that means I need to draw a 6-inch diameter circle. That's 3 inches on either side of that center point. I'm going to use a clamp because my compass is broken and I don't want to leave. My clamp is convenient because it has just a little hole in the center, or on the end. And what I can do is line up my pencil, as you can see, and use the clamp to keep proper tension and make a perfect circle that connects all of my dots. Then I'm going to drill out a hole. It doesn't matter how big, as long as it's big enough to fit the jigsaw blade down into, and I'm going to use that hole to start the giant hole that I'm going to cut out with the jigsaw. And there you go. A little bit of sanding and done. Okay, next up I need to tape off a stripe of this circle here so that I can spray over some clear coat spray paint. This is just polyurethane clear coat. I'm going to spray that over here in 3 coats so that I get solid coverage, and then peel the paint away and begin staining. I'm only going to stain half of this board so that I can see contrast and see how the stain interacts with the actual clear coat itself. You'll be able to see a line if it stains the clear coat, or the entire thing will wipe off. So that's another thing to test. Just brush it on with a chip brush. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to test. Make sure that you stain all the way over the clear coat consistently, because if it does stain the clear coat, you don't want to see any weird lines there, so everything needs to be consistent. Wipe that off fairly quickly. I don't want a heavy stain on this board. I don't think it needs very much with such a dark stain. You can see I'm just going to wipe all the excess stain off, including the clear coat. Make sure I get that nice and clean. And there you can see that the stain does actually tint the clear coat itself a little bit. It's a little hard to notice, but you can see that line of separation. So you want to make sure that you fully cover the clear coat when you stain the actual design. That way you don't end up with any lines. You can also see that the wood grain allows for a little bit of that dark stain to seep underneath the clear coat, which for me is no big deal. Looks fine, and I'm totally happy with that, but it is something to consider. Next, you sand them all down and you spray them off with some compressed air, because I do not have an air compressor. Wipe everything down, make sure they're all nice and clean, free of any debris or dust. And then we're going to begin laying out some painter's tape so that we can get our design in place. I'm kind of just guessing where I want the design to go, and I know a little bit about how big it is and all of that, so I'm just covering a large enough swath of the board here so that I can place it about where it's going to look okay. Okay, so all I did was print out my design on a couple of sheets of printer paper, tape them all together, and then cut out the actual design on with an X-Acto knife. So I have a nice stencil that I'm going to place. It doesn't necessarily matter where I place it on the tape as long as it's fully on the tape and I mark it down. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring from the bottom and the sides to a specific point on the stencil so that when I move it to the next board, I can get it in about the same place. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be pretty close. So I'm writing down all my dimensions so I know exactly where to place the 2 points. Keep everything nice and consistent. Okay, and then you weight down the stencil and start stenciling it onto the painter's tape. Again, it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect because I'm going to be cutting this out by hand, and I kind of like that hand cut kind of look, so when it's not perfect, it's actually better. Bum bum bum, the big reveal. Okay, and then you start cutting it out with your X-Acto knife. Now the fact that I'm cutting directly on the wood is no big deal because that extra groove that I'm cutting into the wood on the outline is actually going to help the clear coat kind of prevent a little bit of the stain from seeping underneath, like we saw in the test piece. This is one of my favorite things to do is peel off stenciled painter's tape. If you've never done it before, you don't fully understand the pure joy that it brings. Make sure I don't get any overspray because anywhere that clear coat hits is going to prevent the stain from adhering or soaking into the wood. So you definitely want to be very, very sure that you cover everything properly. Okay, next up, give it the same 3 coats of clear coat that we did in our test. That way we already know what to expect. ASMR warning. The clear coat is very obviously over the wood in the design, and that makes it really easy to keep track of where it all is. So, then we begin the staining. And you can see I'm just using a chip brush and I'm just slathering it all on there, trying to get the coat even itself. I don't care so much right now which direction I'm brushing the stain, but I will pay attention to how I'm wiping the stain off. I don't want it to stay on there for too long. I just want, again, a light stain. So I'll paint the stain over a section about that large, and then I'll wipe it directly off without waiting in between. And I think that yields the results I'm looking for. So you just slowly section off the entire board all the way through. when you get down to the clear coated section, what I like to do is kind of stain all the way around it so that I can get the clear coat in 1 or 2 full sessions, so I don't have to waste too much time on it. Again, you just paint all the way over it with the stain and wipe the entire thing off, including the clear coat. You don't want to baby it. You want to get all of that stain off. And there you go. I wish that the design that I had chosen was a little bit thicker so you could see more of the underlying wood grain, but I'm actually quite happy with how this thing turned out. The wood grain that shows up through this stain is absolutely gorgeous, especially for just regular plywood. I was not expecting it to look this pretty. And you can see some of the stain did still seep underneath the clear coat, but not nearly as much as in the test, and I actually quite like the way that it looks. All in all, this is quite the pretty stained cornhole set with a fancy little design at the bottom. I think it turned out much better than I thought it would, especially since this was my first time staining such a large piece of wood all in one go.
So there you have it, guys. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, hit that other button. Subscribe if you want to see a little bit more of some of the other stuff that I make this coming year. Hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when this dumb face uploads another video. Share this thing around, and I will see you guys next week.
It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.